this is the original like composition file, actually, of One Another. My process is actually 3 steps usually. I don't think it ever goes to 4. It's usually 3. There's one file where I make the whole song from like scratch, I guess you'd say, and I record instruments or I use virtual instruments and I kind of decide how everything's going to be arranged and I do all the takes I want. And then I make a copy of that file and I trim the fat, so to say. Any takes that I didn't end up using are just gone. So all these takes you might see here, actually, this is actually a great example. It's a ton of ideas here for the different instruments, and there's multiple takes of the vocals all here, and I color code them with usually this green. I like always choose this minty green to be sort of indicative of this is the one I'm going with, even though here I went these dark blue ones, but whatever. I trim the fat and I make that a mixing file, and that's where I apply heavy effects that would slow down the writing process, but that I can sort of dedicate once I already know what the shape and order of the song is going to be. I can dedicate the CPU to that. And then once I'm done with the mixing, I actually export it all out as one file, and then I open a new file just to master it so that I don't have the itch to go back and like make a change here or make a change there. It's like, no, this is done. You just need to master the final file. And there's usually time that I really leave in between the mix and mastering. But anyway, today I want to show you the actual creation of the song. This song started out with just the chords. This whole track is just titled Chords. Let me see what it is. It is an instrument rack where I have an analog synth. It's just the subtractive dual oscillator synth inside of Ableton. Then I have an effect rack, not like one in here. It's the effect rack made by Sound Toys. So I probably was just using a little bit of chorus and a little bit of this one EQ bump and then some delay, definitely. Then I have some EQ to take some low end out because I knew the bass was going to take care of that. And then a compressor, which is obviously just side chained to the kick of the drums so that it would pump, so it wouldn't just be like ba ba, it'd be like ma 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 ma. You know the sound. It's dancey. But I'm just going to play it for you now. This is what you probably recognize from it. Now in context. I leave a mastering chain on the master channel, just like a quick one. This is not what it ended up being in the very end. This is just for me to understand what it might sound like when it's brought up to the final volume level-ish, and when it's squashed with the compression that it's probably going to receive at the end. I mean, there's only so many ways to really master like a pop-ish or a rock-ish song. Like you use the same tools for a lot of them, really. It's just different settings. So anyway, I use this as sort of like a go-to for myself. I even call it Quick Master, and I just drag and drop this whole thing as one, let me see, there we go, as one like little bucket into my master channel of the whole project. And that allows me to just sort of hear what everything is going to sound like. Well, hold on, how can I get this? Oh, there we go, that's what I want to see. Anyway, this song didn't actually start in this key. When I was messing around with the chords here, I just knew I wanted something with that time change between the chords. And it wasn't always in this key, so listen to this. So here, you'll probably see, I don't know if my picture's blocking it, but I have like a little start marker here that says start. But there's 48 measures before this, and you're like, what's all this junk? Well, this was when I was figuring out what key I wanted to sing this song in, when I decided, you know what, I might want to put vocals on it, and I'm not the greatest singer in the world, so I need to know what works with my voice. But it was actually higher originally when I first wrote it. It was this. It would have been a lot harder to sing, but also I just feel like it would have been a lot harder to sing. But I also feel like it just wouldn't have matched the feel of the song. It would have felt a little more like, yeah, go get him. Whereas here it feels a little bit moodier, I guess. I don't think I'm a moody person, but I think that that fits the song. I don't know what type of person I am. But one of my favorite instruments that happens throughout here is these silver keys, they're called, from a wavetable-based synth here in Ableton. And to me, it's just like such a beautiful part. It's one of my favorite parts of the instrumentation of the entire song. It's this instrument. It's kind of light here. I should find a way to crank the volume for you guys. But it's dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun, dun, dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun. It's that one. Love those type of like electric piano-y type of sounds, and they could sound so cheesy by themselves, but I think within the context of songs and when you layer them over other synths, they add that little like sparkly bell, like, yes, there are things ringing and tones happening on top of it that I think we associate with like a lot of emotion in pop music, especially in the 80s. What do I have else here? I have another chord here that's a lot more mellow. These are so quiet. Sorry if you can't hear some of these. I'll just switch into the bass and the drums. So the bass should be pretty obvious. It is just an analog synth bass, again, with just an envelope filter on it. Here we go. Wrong track. Here it is. Right, just like dun 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 dun. Very simple. I didn't really have to do much to it. It does have, I bet you, yep, here we go. It has sidechain compression right here. Of course, it's being sidechained to the kick drum. And you'll see that this whole group is called most drums. That's because I know that later on I'm probably going to add other things to it, or I haven't yet grouped the things above it, like the sub kick, which is the deeper kick that is lower volume, but it's there so that when you're listening to like in your 6/4 and you pump in it, you can actually like feel like a boom, 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 or if this ever gets played in the club, you can hear the boom, boom. The cymbals I separate as well, and then these two I'll talk about in a sec. But anyway, most of the drums are right here, and it's this sound. Kind of a standard like electronic drum sound, in my opinion, which is why I layer other things on top of it. But what I have is a selection of little samples here, all 16 pads here taken up. I actually didn't expand it in any direction because I wanted to keep it straightforward and have it like even the work ethos of like the 80s, but a ton of audio effects afterwards. Let's see what I have here. On this audio effect rack, we have, and these are all inside of here, yeah. We have an overdrive, we have a filter, utility, which is just for me to automate volume, a compressor, a 3-band EQ, some delay, no, it's not working, squash, it's just another compressor, and a limiter, which, if you don't know, is like a compressor where it makes the quiet parts loud and the loud parts quiet and limits it, but it's not subtle about it in any way, like a compressor is. It's like, so whenever you see like the waves, if you used to like listen to music on SoundCloud and you see the sound waves, and it was just like one big sausage without like variation of peaks, it's just like all the way across, that means that it's been like crushed or smashed or squeezed, whatever people want to call it, with a compressor and a limiter, like definitely. Anyway, the drums here are sort of just a very 80s punchy sound. I probably have some individual effects on some of the, oh, actually no, I don't. I don't have individual effects on just the snare. This is pretty great. I was able to achieve this sound by just putting effects in the whole kit. Good. Anyway, the vocals probably merit their own video later on, but these resampling channels that you might see and reversals, they're all related. This allows me to record audio while I'm just working on stuff. Like let's say I'm just listening to a part and I'm like, oh, this sounds sick. And I want to record like a stretch of that as audio already without having to be like, export the whole song, here's the file. I just want to record like a snippet right there. While I'm in a recording program, why not just do it? So I do record it, and then I can mangle it. I can reverse it. I can stretch it so that it takes longer to play through it. I can speed it up so that like it goes through really fast. I can pitch it downwards. I can pitch it upwards. I can do all kinds of things with it. But it's called resampling. That's kind of the basis of it. It is also my preferred method of getting reverse drum and tonal sounds inside of Ableton. This means that there are parts of the song where, I mean, we'll just look here under reversals, where there's like a into a hit. So let's see if we can get this here with the drums. Right now. And it's not always as long and drawn out as that. Sometimes it can be like, or, right? And it's not always going into a drum. I'm just doing that for example because I don't want to sing something right now. But that is achieved by usually taking what the audio is, recording it once, then reversing it all like here while I'm actually working on the thing itself. Like I'm here in like a wave editor and I go and I reverse it and then I maybe stretch it out so that it's the right timing that I want because the tail end with all the reverb didn't, it didn't line up correctly. But anyway, I stretch it and then I line it up right where I want it to be. So here in this case, I wanted there to be a quarter note. I think it's just a quarter note where it would go and then go into the final chorus. That happens with all kinds of other things here. So this is a reversal that is going into a cymbal. So it's so that the cymbal right after it could then crash. There's probably reversals of my voice going into things. I have little risers that are like the sound that you probably hear like quiet in the background of a lot of electronic music in particular. Let me see, anything else? Let's see what this one is. So now this resampling. Oh, and you use like 2 different tracks to bounce between them and apply extra effects in between. You could look up whole videos on the idea of resampling, but that's my crash course on it. Let's see what this sounds like. Cool. That one, I think that's maybe my voice, like like about like the first line of like how come. It's probably like how, but in reverse. It's really weird to mimic for you. But yes, this is it for the most part. You can see where I've laid off on the deep parts of the kick so that it would just be like, okay, like we have the kick drum here, but it's not as like boom, boom. Everybody wants to make the most of what they make. But then here, this green layer that you see is the sub kick. So once we get to the chorus, it's like, oh no, baby, we trying to make this subwoofer like bump, bump. Right? Let's see, the mini lead. Yeah, it's just another wavetable synth. I wish I could say that I owned like a mini Moog and that I was here like, yeah, baby. I did play it, but I played it on my MIDI controller. I wasn't actually playing it on a real synthesizer. I do have a real synthesizer. It's red. But here I just wanted to be able to control the notes later in case there was like a wrong note. And yeah, it may not have been perfect on the first take. I don't remember if I did this in one take or not, but who cares? I'm only human. That might be it. When you think about it, this is a pretty simple song. Like a little garnish chord thing, the little keys, the chords that are like the big brassy ones, the little solo synth at the end is its own instrument, the bass, the drums. Look at this. This is not a complex song. I think I was trying to keep it to like around 16 or so because I think 16 tracks was kind of like the big breakthrough in the 80s, or maybe it was 32 tracks at that point. But I remember like reading a review in like a guitar magazine when I was like a kid of like Frank Zappa, and one of his albums was like one of the first albums that utilized the extra tracks that studios all of a sudden were able to work with, and it was like, wow, there's so many things going on, as opposed to having to group instruments together and record them together like they did back in the day, like where they would record like the drums and the bass together into one mic and be like, oh shit, this is the rhythm track. Like they just mix like 4 things or 8 things together. I think I wanted to keep it like 16 and certainly not past 32 because it felt truer to the era. Anyway, I think that's it.